Welcome back to The Change Physician. I am Melissa Cady, the Challenge Doctor, with my co-host from the West Coast, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, bringing you an actual Saturday Salutations instead of a Monday Motivations. But either way, we're here to say hi to the world and say hi to each other and share what's going on in the podcast and share a snippet or two of, current events or current thoughts or, I don't know, random tangential conversation.
Random stuff.
Yeah, so let me pull up. We've kind of shifted courses a little bit for the time being when it comes to our podcast. For the last year, I think probably a good full year, we've done Thursday throwbacks just because we felt like, especially during the pandemic, we really got some amazing guests. So we really wanted to put back out there. So as of just recently, we've been just putting out, of course, we always have our recordings from our Saturday Salutations. Most weekends we get that accomplished on Saturday or Sunday. But we release on Thursdays. Since we release our lives on the weekend, we've been releasing our episodes on Thursday. So the most recent, that being the 16th today, was how to create exciting health from boring habits. Sometimes the most important things aren't things that sell real easily or draw our attention the most, but they're tried and true. And so make sure to check out that episode. Any comments there, Kevin?
No, other than I think that's sort of like the secret for everything is just doing the same, the similar things that most people know what to do consistently over time. Mm-hmm. Or as I tell my kids, that the secret of success is doing the things that you say you want to do when you don't want to do them.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
It's like, you don't just take, like I just have shower head. You don't just take all your showers at once to do for your lifetime. You've got to
do them today for the next year.
Get all your showers in for a decade. That might be a bad water bill, but I guess you can just stay in the same bath and pretend like you're doing 100 baths. But, yeah, it's kind of like common sense stuff, it's a process that you need to do and rinse and repeat, pardon the pun. But yeah, it's kind of those necessary things as a human being that's alive and not.
Well, and it's interesting to me is all the stuff that, there's a lot of things that people say and then we all go, yeah, I know that. But we don't do it.
Right.
And so like a week or two ago, I think I talked about it on one of these Saturday Salutations. I started counting macros because I had done to the point where I was exercising a ton and I don't eat bad, but I definitely want to lose some fat. And I'm like, all right, so it's count your macros, make sure you actually do some mild caloric restriction and stuff. And it is, it's not like that came out of the blue. And it's not like I didn't know that for literally years. But once I actually started doing it, it's so interesting. Mm-hmm. It is, it's just absolutely fascinating to me. And it just, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that we do, humans in general, and we just sort of ignore it because we think it's commonplace or it doesn't matter to me, or maybe I kind of tried it once, but I didn't really invest any time in that. Once it works. It's just insane.
Yeah, I was just thinking wealth, health, and relationships are like those big things out there you can market to people because people want that quick fix or that, answer. Because even though it's right under your nose, these little things, people might say, oh, be kind, or, a lot of times you don't treat the person you're closest to the best. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But it's like, these things, but if you're not implementing and putting into practice, it's a good reminder to all of us. And I speak for myself too. Like you always have to keep yourself in check and remind yourself when you're lying to yourself and denial of the things you need to consistently do better.
Yeah. There's is it a Feynman, Richard Feynman quote, I think is something like, the most important rule is to not fool yourself. And the easiest person to fool is you, or something like that. Right. And it's, because we are, right. And we all think we know better or whatever. And yet we aren't. We typically will fall for the same stuff. That came up because I'm trying to do the submission for this like financial thing. And our finances are nothing crazy. They're pretty basic. but I'm trying to like dive into some of the questions, and I'm like, oh my God, this is I probably need to spend, and I have been spending way too much more time on this, just because look at the asset allocation and this and that and the other thing, and it's like some of the things I thought I had, I didn't quite have. I mean, none of it's bad, but but I'm doing it going, I should know this better. Like we always say, you should know this, or you should know what your percentiles are. And I know kind of what they are, but I'm not as specific, particularly where I am in my age right now. I need to know more about that. And I kind of let that slide for a while. So very interesting, really kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, there's so many facets in our lives that need attention at some point. It's just hard to do it all at once. But on a note about talking about denial, and it's easy to fool yourself. It's funny how when you judge other people from the outside, it seems so obvious to maybe the outside observer who, maybe it's a close friend that knows people's routines and know where they could improve themselves. But the reality is, they've got to be ready to be the student and unmask or be willing to look in the mirror and recognize. I actually had this conversation with a friend this morning, just how sometimes our closest friends or people can be mirrors unto ourselves and help us see ourselves for who we are if we're willing to. But sometimes you have an emotional reaction because you're not ready for it.
I say most of the time we have an emotional reaction when it comes to us. I think that's the problem with decision making overall for an individual, is that emotional reactivity gets in the way of making sound judgment-based, data-based decisions. Yeah. And it happens, like it's particularly bad, I think, with physicians, because we don't appreciate how much our decisions are influenced by our emotional state, and we should be dealing with data, but definitely on an individual basis as well. We, like you said, you point to somebody else, say, oh, they should do this, but then when it comes to you, we don't, or we don't listen to it. And that's funny that you said it, because I was literally just this morning thinking about that, and the fact that most of us say we want someone's opinion, but we don't. Generally, we want someone to either vent to and then justify what we were already talking about in our brain. We rarely want the other person's actual advice on anything. At least that's kind of the impression I've got recently over some of the several conversations I've had with individuals where they're like, oh, what do you think about this? And I'm literally like started talking, and I'm like, it doesn't matter what I say here. You already made up your mind, and you want me to say you're right, even if you're wrong.
They want validation.
They want validation of whatever and we all do that. And I think that's the most difficult thing as an individual, is if you are actually going to ask someone for advice, that you want their opinion, is to recognize in yourself when you're asking it that you actually want to hear advice, or you want to hear their opinion, and be able to take that opinion and fully consider it before saying, no, that's not true. Otherwise, I'm like, this is just a waste of time. And maybe it's kind of, I'm burned out because I so much. What would you do? What would you do? And then you're like, tell them, oh, I can't do that. 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 Way back. Well, this is like 10 years ago. I literally remember I had a patient come in, and like kind of the central sensitization, fibro, whole body pain thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the number one most important thing you need to do is move. You need to do some sort of movement every day. And every time I said something, have you tried this? No, I can't do that. 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 And I'm like, and finally I was just like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And she said, well, what do I need to do? And I go, well, something, like literally something, but I can't tell you I can't provide you any more suggestions, because everything that's coming out of my mouth, you're saying you can't do it. So at some point you have to actually recognize, if this is what you need to do, you need to find what it is that you can do to fulfill that, if whoever you're talking to isn't providing something you want to listen to, or you just, I just remember that, because I was a little short at the end. I was finally, because they're like, oh, what can I do after like 40 minutes of this? And I was just like, something, you just need to do something.
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
Yeah. anyway, it still gives me a little emotional because it's like, you want to help somebody and they're just, at some point I'm like, I can't help you. I can't even begin to help you because you don't want me to, you're not letting me help you.
Yeah. This is like a little light bulb of like a lot of things came to mind when you said that, is that people inadvertently sometimes want to maintain their own pain. They don't realize it. And I'm going to bridge into something other than the traditional physical pain thing you're talking about, or well, it's all
pain, just pain. Yeah.
Physical, emotional, whatever, however it manifests. But it's like, we just talked about how you're trying to put a mirror in front of them, helping them understand not just themselves and maybe their pain. And like, sometimes you have to move through pain with the pain. Like, instead of avoiding everything, avoiding life, avoiding pain, all this stuff, the same thing goes for like, you ask a friend your opinion about something, and you've got to ground yourself before you go into that conversation to say to yourself, and this is good advice for me too, tell yourself you might not like what you're going to hear, and that's okay. It's okay. Let that, whatever washes over you, whatever you feel, let it move through you. Just let it pass. Don't try to avoid it. Same kind of thing. Don't have this pain avoidance thing. Just try to like open your mind to it, explore it, just let it happen, and know that you're going to be okay, and then reflect on it. And so I feel like when people give you advice, if it's not what you want to hear, in fact, I'd probably give them permission. Hey, I really want you to think about what I'm about to say and give me your feedback. And I know I may or may not like what you have to say, but that's okay. I want like honesty. That to me is like a healthier way, in my personal opinion, and even some science behind it, about how to deal with that. What do you think? Because I mean, we're going to feel
I
stuff.
would agree. You have to, and probably framing it in such a way, and there has to be a moment you have to feel comfortable with whoever you're with. Like you have to feel safe in that, on both sides. Like whoever the person who's going to give advice needs to feel safe that, you're not going to blow up on them or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is really quite fascinating, because there's people who are specialists in certain fields, and I could see where people ask for advice and they just stop giving it. Yeah. And one of them, so health is one, right? As I said in mine, in the pain thing, I'm so tired of it. I don't even like people asking about it anymore. Yeah, so, but then I was thinking, when it came to like business and entrepreneurship, and when I was working more in the entrepreneur space and going to a lot of events, it was funny because you can sort of watch and talking to these really highly successful entrepreneurs, and you can almost watch how their responses were when people ask them things. And they're very much guarded, and they would give you kind of these sort of simple things. Someone may say, well, this is my business or whatever, and they would often not really comment on it in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's because it's very, very similar. As people start getting wedded to these ideas and we get so emotionally entangled in stuff, we just simply don't want to hear it. And part of that is because we get emotionally invested. And then the other part, when it comes to like change, particularly when we are in an uncomfortable or someplace where we're not happy, like a large sense of dissatisfaction, is there's this quote called, or people prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. And I think that's completely true. Like people in a relationship, right there, the relationship may be miserable, but it's a known misery, versus, oh my God, I have to step out the door and it's full of uncertainty again. Or like the pain thing, I have this realm that I'm in, and this is my how my life is. And if I somehow step outside of this or do something different, how will that change? And that could be very threatening. Mm-hmm. And again, there's some interesting when you start looking at the trauma and why people who have a history of trauma and kind of the health outcomes with them. And we start looking at, change strategies, and uncertainty becomes extraordinarily uncomfortable if you have a history of trauma. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's another kind of a thing that we all need to get better with. I'm definitely raising my hand here, is uncertainty. Being uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is a little a little discussed, and certainly one of the most important like core traits that we should have, you know.
Yeah. Well, I kind of equate this pain, all this emotion, just what I was talking about earlier, like move through the pain, like just let it wash over, be open to, even though it sounds so like opposite, discomfort, pain, stress, anxiety, like all of these elements of human experience. It's not the most comfortable. All those things are not necessarily comfortable, but when you see them for what they are, and that they're giving you information as to how your system is perceiving the environment, your whatever, or it could be people, place, whatever. Yeah, I think all of it is, it's like a spectrum of discomfort, like pain, even sadness, I guess you can put it all in there, but anxiety, stress of some sort, or pain. But
life is pain.
Well,
anybody says definitely is trying to sell you something. Life is pain, princess. Anybody who's trying to sell you something different is trying to sell something. That's from the Princess Bride. Princess Bride.
I've seen it, but I don't remember the quote.
Oh, it's like literally like life is pain, Highness. Anybody who tells you different is trying to sell you something. It's Buddhist, right? It is at the root of all pain, suffering. Something, what is it? That's like the first thing, root of suffering, and all the reason we suffer is because of we want stuff. And
expectations that are not met.
Yeah, it's there's this like the core of Buddhist philosophy is basically very similar as life is pain, and the root of all pain is you want things, but I can't remember the actual word that they use. You know, desire is desire, and you're supposed to kind of the cessation of desire is the goal of Buddhism, and maintaining the path, maintaining that cessation of desire is sort of like the path that you're supposed to be on. Yeah,
there you go. Straight from the West Coast.
Straight from the West Coast.
Yeah. With quotes. That's awesome. Well, I think the podcast will just mention that one. Anything this past week you want to share?
Let's see. Past week has been interesting. Again, just kind of go on the macro thing. I stumbled into a new product that has been quite fun. I've only had it for about 4 days now. But there's all these kind of like food things. And did you ever hear of Soylent?
No.
So Soylent was this nutritionally complete shake that they've been selling for a while now. And when
like horrible name.
Yes. When it came out, and they were advertising it heavily on like Facebook and stuff. And the movie came out before my time, but I was at least young enough. I guess I'm at least old enough to know the context of Soylent, right? Because Soylent Green, people, if you don't know, is people. Soylent Green is people. But Soylent is not. It's a nutritionally complete food that apparently doesn't contain people. And this is when you know you're starting to get old, because the tech founders, the actual name Soylent is because the protein comes from soy and lentils. Anyway, long story short, over the last 10 years, there's been these companies that have produced this stuff and these nutritionally complete shakes. And I stumbled on this one called Huel, Huel, rhymes with gruel, Huel, who's very similar. And they started with this nutritionally complete powder that you would do for shakes. And then they've started adding in these things they call hot and savory that are, it's basically like a freeze-dried food. But the advantage is they're packaged in such a way that that's X calories, and here's the macro composition for it. And it happened because I was really trying to figure out a way about simplifying, like how can I simplify my macro count so I'm not having to calculate this stuff. It was either going to be creating a menu that was pretty much consistent every day, like the similar types of foods. And then this thing came along, and I'm like, damn, this is kind of fun. Let me just try that, because then I know what the packages are. Yeah. And I know how that works. And I really like it. Like, yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it because it just makes it easier. And the food is, they're all vegan. Like, I'm not theoretically a vegan, but it's all plant-based. So, that's in the macro count, and then the nutrients that they have are kind of these healthy profiles. They're not like highly processed. They look to be predominantly just freeze-dried food. And some people may not, I already ate a lot of lentils and beans and kind of stuff. So rehydrating something and making it into a kind of a mushy stuff isn't that's a lot of what our food is, to be honest, because we eat a lot of lentils in our house. And but it's just been really, really, really kind of fun. And then tracking it becomes so much easier. And then it makes it easier to figure out like how to plan out your day and things. And I got to say, some of the foods I really like some of the ones that I thought were going to be really good are not. They're a little bit more bland. And some of the ones I was like, I'm just going to order this, but I'm like, I really like this particular meal one is really good. And they have the shaky one is the chocolate flavor. And unlike a protein shake, it's nutritionally complete. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. This is like freaking dessert. It's like eating a dessert for your lunch. Anyway, but it's been a hoot. So what I'm kind of hoping in is about 2 or 3 months is to come back with an update on how that has gone. But it's a long way to say I'm like actually super impressed with this product. I'm like,
oh, well, good.
Yeah.
I might have to check it out later if you're still liking it after the new phase.
Oh yeah. It'll
keep us posted. Keep us
posted.
I actually started doing my pull-ups, put it in my office door frame.
Right,
and I got COVID, and then I just restarted back up after healing up from that. Luckily, this is my second COVID that was milder than my first experience last year, which is horrid. So my goal, I was working up to 2 sets of 15, but not coming from like still from the floor. I would do a little hop to get myself going up. So a little bit of
kipping
jump.
One, the kipping pull up.
I don't know if you call it kipping, but it's more like I kind of give myself a head start with the jump. I would call it. I would say I'm doing jumping pull-ups because I jump up, then I pull up the last half and then go down. Just trying to get all of the things activated for that motion and not fully putting my body weight, from a still position standing and pulling up. So I jump up a little bit. So I'm kind of doing like half pull-ups and it's got momentum.
But once you've got the bar, then you're doing like a regular pull-up.
I'm letting myself come down to the floor every time right now.
Oh, and then jumping back up again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just starting to get my musculoskeletal system up here used to some load and not put the full load on yet. So I want to get not just the muscles with tendons, all the tissues ready. Yeah. So I'll slowly start coming down slowly on the eccentric or the lengthening, coming back down. And then once that seems like it's well controlled, then I'll try to start pulling myself up every other one. And then, work to a place where my goal would be to just do pull up, like even if just a set of 20 for the rest of my life on most days of the week, just to maintain just some muscle mass in the upper body. Because it's such a great functional movement that requires no gym. And so of course I still work on, some jumping squats. It's like one of those Pilates, you're horizontal, but it has a trampoline. So you're pretend like you're jumping on a trampoline, squatting down, but you're laying down on a sliding platform. So your feet are on a trampoline and your back is on a sliding platform, and I can bounce off the trampoline.
And then is there like something that pulls you back to the trampoline, or you're shooting across the floor or smashing your head into the wall or something? It has
4 elastic bands, and you can take them off if you don't want them as much resistance. So I have the most resistance because it's not that hard. But I do jumps with both legs, and then I'll transition to one leg after I warm up with both legs. And then I start doing, the single leg on the ground, which are more difficult. But anyway, that's kind of that's an apparatus I got because I can use it for the rest of my life. Everything I have is like pretty much all ages. I mean, all fitness levels could use, and you can just up the ante based on, how fit you are at the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So the whole point was I started doing my pull-ups, and I'm going to try to stick to that habit. Anytime I walk in the office, which I know I usually walk in the office most days of the week, so I'll always at least do a set. And my plan is next Thursday to go and check out, inspect the nearby tennis place and the dance place. So on one of my days off. So
yes, tennis and and dance.
Yep. So we'll see how it goes and start working towards a plan there. But yeah, that's about all I got.
You got all you got. That was pretty good though.
Okay. Thanks for the encouragement. Well, why don't you take us out unless you have something else?
No, nothing. It's fall. And yeah.
Oh yeah,
apple cider season. So
we just finally got under 100 degrees.
Oh, I was gonna say it's been hot here. It was like 89 yesterday, which I was like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, we're still in the 90s, but better than the 100s.
I can't. I'm just looking forward to when the rains come.
We just started having rain a couple days ago, which is like
sounds
a
like
miracle.
with steamy rain. If it's 100 degrees out there, like
I know. Yeah. Well, it's been really nice the last 2 days. We needed it, but anyway.
All right,
go ahead.
Well, Saturday salutations, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the Changed Physician. As always, if you have a comment or if you have your own specific little health strategy or common knowledge that is not uncommon, you can shoot it directly to me at drkevin@thechangedphysician.com. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.